Hey friends, welcome back. So today we're going to get a little nerdy. We're going to talk some software. I'm going to explain to you where I've decided to put my money as far as software goes. And 90% of it is no longer with Adobe. I've basically dumped Adobe down to a couple of pieces of software that I will elaborate on in a little bit. But basically, the Creative Cloud is no more. I'm no longer paying, what does it come to Canadian? $84.18 a month. Yes, with the conversion, $84.18 a month for the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite, whatever you want to call it. And with all the uproar that they've had over the summer, as far as privacy, using your images to train their AI images, etc., I'm pretty much giving them one of these. Because I've had enough. And there's other alternatives out there, which I'm going to get into in a second. And yeah, let's get into it. So if you're kind of wondering what I use creative-wise as far as my creative work and my content creation and that kind of thing, I'm going to tell you what I was using and what I'm using now. So let's get into it. As you know, I'm a graphic designer. Been doing this a while. I actually started developing websites in like 1998 when you still had to learn how to hard code HTML. Been kind of going ever since. Freelancing, worked for companies, ran the whole gamut. Currently right now I have a client out of the East Coast that is keeping me pretty busy. I design websites for them using a other piece of software that I had to learn for these guys. Wasn't a stretch. I'm pretty good at adapting different things. So I use Figma for them. Once in a while, a little bit of what I used to use Illustrator for. And that's about it. Now I also have my t-shirt company. I design t-shirts. I'm a photographer, so I'm always taking photos, editing photos, uploading photos, all that kind of stuff. And of course I'm here, so that means I'm shooting and editing video. All right, so let's get down to it. For t-shirts, logo design, sometimes other graphics, headers, what have you, vector graphics for signs, logos, icons, that kind of thing, I'd use Illustrator. Let's be clear, Adobe Illustrator. Now, in addition to Adobe Illustrator, I was also doing sometimes designing a t-shirt once in a while if it was more just word-based. I'd use InDesign, and I also did some brochures and that kind of stuff. Not so much lately, but more back in the day. I became quite efficient in InDesign. Used it once in a while since then, but not really much. And what I found replaces that is Affinity's publisher. So Affinity is another software company, and they do not offer a subscription service. You buy the software outright one time, you own it. You own that version, I think, plus sometimes I think there might even be a couple updates if they update that version. So like if you buy version 2 and then they come out with version 2.4, I think you get that update. If they do a major upgrade version, like from version 2 to 3, then I think you have to pay extra for those. But basically what I ended up doing was I just did a little research and found that to replace Illustrator, Affinity Designer works good for that. To replace InDesign, Affinity Publisher works great for that. And I do use them both now. I have used them both, and I've noticed not much difference. A little bit of a learning curve here and there, just figuring out where the tools are, and once you kind of know what your way around, it's fairly easy. Then came down to web stuff. Haven't done a lot of like old school hard coding, building websites from scratch anymore. So I don't need Adobe Dreamweaver anymore. I've transitioned away from that. If I do a website, I usually recommend using Elementor on WordPress. That's kind of my go-to now. I'm not doing a lot of web stuff. And with all the platforms like Wix and Squarespace and all these other different platforms that you can basically build your own website or hire a guy like me who can just, you know, go in and do it fairly quick. There's not a whole lot of demand for, you know, build me a website from scratch. I mean, I'm not competing with Google or building these massive platforms or anything like that. So like I said, I've transitioned away from Dreamweaver. If I'm building a website, I'll use Elementor on top of WordPress. And if I'm just designing, which is what I do for this job that I have, I'm actually using Figma for that. So that is a cost there. I think it's 15 bucks a month for Figma, but it's a cost of doing business. Like, that's where I'm making my money. So in case you're wondering, I'm going to do a cost breakdown comparison in a second, but I'm just kind of running through what I used to use to versus what I'm using now, what the switch was like, etc., etc. So up next is video. What am I using for video? Well, I used to use Premiere Pro, part of the Adobe Creative Cloud. And to be honest, I'm not missing that at all, because it used to crash on me on a regular basis. I have a decent Mac with extra RAM, all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of a glitchy piece of shit, to be honest. Yeah, I'm not going to hold any punches as far as that goes. So I switched to DaVinci Resolve. Now, I can't remember exactly the version. It will hit me in the side of the head when I open up all these clips to edit them together. But basically the latest version as of August, and I purchased the studio version. Now, DaVinci Resolve does have a free version, so if you're just kind of dabbling and want to play around and whatever, that's going to suit most people. I just don't like to be handcuffed, so to speak. I was making the money, I bit the bullet, bought it. So instead of using glitchy Premiere Pro, I'm now using DaVinci Resolve, and I will be 100% transparent. I have not noticed anything laggy, anything glitchy, nothing. It's working like a dream. So there's that. Then I guess the only thing that really remains is my photography. Now, this is where I had to really dig deep and try and figure out what I wanted to do. I researched a bunch of stuff. There's some software out there. I think one of them is called Darktable. It's supposed to be a Lightroom alternative. I've watched some videos on it, and of course, there's Photoshop, and we'll get into that in a second. But basically, Lightroom to me was the aha moment as far as managing and editing my photography. Yes, I push them to Photoshop once in a while, but for the most part, I do all my photo editing in Lightroom, and everything's organized in there. I got my catalog figured out, my folders, everything. Like, I love the organization part of it. So to me, it was a really hard one to replace. Now, this is where I'll give Adobe a little bit of credit. They have the wherewithal to have a photography bundle, which is basically two pieces of software, Adobe Lightroom and Adobe Photoshop. So when I bought the Affinity Suite, I got Designer, Publisher, and their photo version of Photoshop, like their Photoshop alternative. I do have that, but I haven't really dabbled in it because here's the caveat to me dumping Adobe. I downgraded everything right down to the photography bundle. So for my photography, I'm sticking with Adobe for now. I'm not, you know, hard wired into it. If I do see something that is like basically knocking their ass in the dirt, as far as like functionality and that kind of thing, and is doing better, I will switch. I'm not loyal to any brands at this point in my life. If something better comes along that does the job better, it's just a tool. It's no different than, you know, going buying a multi-driver at Walmart and then finding out that the Milwaukee one works better or whatever, and upgrading at a certain point. You just do it. It's a tool. So with that in mind, I am paying for the Adobe photography bundle, and that, I guess, is a good segue into prices. What am I paying now? The full Adobe subscription plan that I paid for in Canadian dollars was $84.18. It was basically, that's just the latest exchange that I found. It's basically $59.99 US per month. I went and bought the Affinity. I think they were having a deal It might not be this now. Don't quote me, because I am delayed in doing this video because I wanted to play with the stuff a little bit and kind of get a little bit more comfortable and make sure that I'm talking about it right, etc. When I bought the Affinity Suite, it was old man glasses. Hang on. So when I bought the Affinity Suite, it was $82 US. So $115.49 Canadian. And like I said, that gives you designer, publisher, and their alternative to Photoshop. I think it's just Affinity Photos, if I remember correctly. Then next up was DaVinci Resolve. Okay, like I said, there's a free version. You can always use the free version. I decided to go with the full suite. And of course, this is, again, a one-time fee. Like, I'm not paying this every month. This isn't like, you know, renew every year or anything like that. This is like, you pay this fee, you own the software for as long as you want to use it. So for DaVinci Resolve was $309.90 US dollars. And that came to $434.87 Canadian. Okay. Now, because like I mentioned, I stuck with Adobe's photography bundle. Well, that basically is $12.99 Canadian a month, plus tax. So it comes to $13.64. Okay. So basically, if we do the math, I've just outlaid $550.36 Canadian on new software. Plus $13.64 for the first month of Adobe's photography bundle. That comes to about $564 Canadian. Okay, now if we divide that by $84.18 per month, which is what I was paying for Adobe, in 7 months, my only cost will now be $13.64, because the software after that is free. The DaVinci will be free because I paid for it. The Affinity Suite will be free because I paid for it. So if people ask, you know, why would you dump Adobe? There it is. Sure, it's a little hit in the wallet off the bat, but after 5, 6, 7 months, you're not paying that subscription fee to Adobe anymore, are you? And that's pretty much where I stand. And, I mean, there's little side bonuses like the fact that DaVinci Resolve is way better than Premiere, as far as I'm concerned. It's been way less glitchy. Well, it hasn't been glitchy at all, put it that way. So that's where I'm at. Nerded out on some software. That's pretty much all we really are going to talk about. I'm not going to show you each piece. That's kind of one of those things for more people that are like, okay, well, you know, I'm just looking to replace Illustrator because that's what I use the most, or whatever your personal case may be. That's, you know, that's up to you to kind of go and compare and see. You know, they all have free trials and stuff too, by the way. Like, you can try this Affinity stuff and see if it works for what you're doing, and then, you know, pull the trigger on it if you want. Or you can only, if you only want, like say you only want a, you know, alternative to Photoshop, well, go buy Affinity Photo for the going price and dump the Adobe, right, if you don't need it. You know, like, honestly, if I used Photoshop and I didn't use Lightroom as much, the only reason I'm still with Adobe at all is for Lightroom. That's it. The Affinity version of Photoshop, whatever you want to call it, is going to do the job. It's not like they just put out a piece of software and walked away. They're software companies. They're working on it, upgrading it, new versions, that kind of thing all the time. And later on down the road, if all of a sudden, you know, DaVinci 18 comes out and I go, okay, well, maybe it's time to upgrade, then you upgrade. But even then, it's probably still going to be worth it over the long haul. If you're a content creator or a creative person who's working in the creative industry, yeah. So that's my take. I was getting tired of Adobe and seeing their shit in the news, and, you know, like, their whole, like, they were investigated by the Department of Justice, for Pete's sake, for you know, not allowing people to unsubscribe from their bullshit. And it's like, yeah, not cool. So I'm kind of making a stance as much as I can. Like I said, there's that one little thing, Lightroom, but that's that. They're getting $13.50 as opposed to $84. So thanks for watching. I'll talk to you all soon. And yeah, stay tuned. I'm going to try and get back in gear and get some more videos done. So talk to you all soon. Bye.